Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jen Marples Show. Today, I have a most fabulous guest. You're going to love her. Her name is Erin Gallagher, and you've probably heard of her, and I'll tell you why. She's the CEO and founder of Ella, an inclusive network, unlocking women's access to human, social, and financial capital. We love that. She's the founder of the HypeWomen movement, which I love. And she also just launched a shiny new podcast called HypeWomen. And she is a top voice on LinkedIn. You guys, she's got like over 50,000 followers on LinkedIn. I said, I fight for like, I don't know, the sad little 1,500 that I have, but I'm like 50,000, my word.
Every follower counts. Every follower counts.
Every follower counts, of course. And you're going to understand why everyone's following her once you get to know her today. So she's basically just a badass voice for all things women's rights and women being at the top. And she's also a shiny new 2-time South by Southwest panelist. So that just got announced. So she's going to be at South by Southwest in the spring, which I'm going to try to get to. And we have a very fun connection that we went to the same high school. So I graduated a million years ago, Punahou High School in Hawaii. And so Erin was there for a few years. We weren't there at the same time, but we all know, you've heard me talk on the Jen Marples Show. If there's any Hawaii connection, anybody spent even a half a minute in Hawaii, like we're BFFs for life. So I just had to throw that in there. But Erin, with all of that, thank you for being here. And I cannot wait to get into such a juicy conversation today with you about all things women and women supporting women.
It's going to be juicy, Jen, and I'm so excited and grateful to be here. And yes, our Hawaii connection is totally wild. Having grown up there and lived there twice, the daughter of a Coast Guard officer, my mom, who was in the Coast Guard for 25 years, lived there 1st through 4th grade. And then 9th and 10th grade is when I went to Punahou. And I have a ton of friends who are still deep members of my sisterhood to this day who went to Punahou. So totally wild. What a wild time. And, Barack Obama also a Punahou alum. And so it's a great school.
It really is. And we always kind of joked like, I graduated solidly in the middle. People are going up to Princeton and Juilliard and doing all these amazing things. Yes, the president, Barack, went to the high school, the founder of AOL, yes. eBay, a couple of those little companies you might have heard of. And I'm like, we did all right. So it was just joke because it was the land of the overachievers, but it's a beautiful, wonderful school. And sidebar, one of my girls actually got in. She applied. She put herself through the application process and got in. We just couldn't make it work because it's not a boarding school.
Yeah.
So she would have had to live with my parents, and they're kind of like, it was a big ask. It was a big
sure. Absolutely.
But I was very proud of her for getting herself.
That's amazing. No, that's a big achievement. It's a tough school to get into.
It really is. So I digress, but that was a big day for us and the family. I was just so proud of her for our kids. Just, it's not if you win or lose, it's how you play the game. And she stepped up and out. So that was a huge achievement.
Amazing.
Anyway, let's get into it. So before we get into our deep talk about all things women and women supporting women, tell everybody where you've been and how you got to where you are today. Because I know we have some similar journeys too. You used to be in the PR world, same as me. I used to own a PR firm. Of course, we've got that Hawaii connection, but where did Erin turn into this voice, big, huge voice in the women's movement? Let's just call it.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's been fits and starts over time, but when I turned 40, that's really when I just absolutely came out of the cocooned chrysalis and turned from that crawling caterpillar that was, really falling in line and being a good soldier in all of the organizations where I'd worked, to that butterfly that said, I'm out of here. I'm expanding. I'm spreading my wings and I'm leaving. But, my journey was not a very linear path. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. I went to University of Michigan. I was an English major. You and I both talked about being English majors. Thought I wanted to be a lawyer. And so my first job out of college was actually at a nonprofit called Service Members Legal Defense Network. Our entire mission was to lift the ban on gays in the military, which we ultimately did. And so that was where I sort of kicked off my career in DC. And I went from there to spend the next 15 years working in agencies, PR agencies, doing marketing, communications, and really just falling in love with the power of storytelling and realizing how much a platform and a position of power and influence can have in the world, and the power that brands and individuals who have that sort of following can have. So I paid attention to that. I understood that. I respected that. And then started my first company with 2 other women in 2019, a diversity consultancy, and we spent 2.5 years there. And then I left. I left when I turned 40 because I really just wanted to get back to women. I wanted to get back to focusing on women. We are not a niche market. Women are 51% of the population. We are half of the labor force. We were more than half of the labor force before the pandemic, but it, slid us back 40 to 50 years in terms of our progress. And we also carry the weight of 85% of consumer buying power. So the power of women is so unbelievable. And I just aspirationally, with the work that I'm doing, am trying to achieve two things. I want to accelerate women into positions of power and influence, and I want to help women build generational wealth. So if women are running everything and they have more money, we will all do better because of it.
Oh, I love it. I love it, love it, love it. And it's so important. We're so aligned in what we want to do and what we want to see for women. And it's shocking to me. I know we follow a lot of the same people and we see the same research and the same studies, the fact that we've been ignored. So the over 40 women has completely just been ignored. We've been marginalized. I like to say, I know you agree, like ageism is sort of that last little box in the DEI, column that we have to check. And it's like we just have to rage against the machine because there's no reason for it except that corporate America was built by men. And I'm not going to man bash, whatever. We just want equality. Like, I'm married to a white guy, whatever. But it's like, and I'm on him all the time to make him think differently because they've been taught the way they've been taught. So that's probably a whole separate conversation. But you and I are both sort of like putting all our effort into supporting women. And the juicy conversation we're going to get into today too is about how we can better support each other. So I know a lot of the times I think we feel like we're preaching to the choir, but when I was going out with something about a year ago, and a friend of mine actually said she's super duper in a big corporate, very visible job at a big tech company. She's like, Jen, you have to understand, women still to this day do not know what it's like to be fully supported by another woman. And that blew me away because, well, I've worked for myself for a long time and have been in very female focused industries that it's like, what? But it's shocking, but not shocking. So we're going to get into that. So tell everybody what you do as far as, because you do these dinners, these fairway dinners. So I think that's really interesting, exciting, because I bring women together as well. So tell us a bit like how you are bringing this to life. And then we're going to get into juicy hype women discussion.
Yeah. And I think that it's even what you said about so many men are in leadership roles. We know that. We know that the Fortune 500 is occupied by 450 CEOs that are men. And so it's not about, like, again, man bashing. I also am married to a straight white man. And I think there are a lot of incredible men in this world. What it's about is the systems that were built by and for straight white men that are exclusive to everyone else. That is problematic, right? That word exclusive has been sold to us as something that's sexy. Like, wow, be a part of this club. It's like, no, exclusive means you are excluding. You're excluding people that don't look like someone else or have a specific archetype that fits that mold. So the idea of the fairway was straight white men have been doing business on the golf course for 300 years. They have been out there talking about business, talking about their investments, sharing opportunities with one another, giving each other backdoor access to jobs. And women and people of color have not been invited. And if we show up, we're not included. The conversation completely changes. So I've been really frustrated to see, even in the past year, more studies and research and headlines come out saying, women, you got to get on the golf course. That's where it's happening. And it's like, you guys, you're missing the forest through the trees. Like, if we go out there with those men, they are not going to give us access to their human, social, and financial capital. They are going to hold it close to their vest and keep it for the other men in their lives because they've been conditioned to do that. So I wanted to create our own fairway, a place where women could do that same thing in a way that is more natural to us, comfortable, psychologically safe. And that's over dinner and drinks. And so we actually have our 19th fairway dinner this Thursday in Chicago. And we've been doing this for about a year, completely self-funded and bootstrapped. And we bring together 20 women at each of these dinners. It's very highly curated, consciously curated. You have women who are Fortune 500 C-suite. You have women who are mid to senior level rising stars across all different types of organizations and businesses. And then you have founders and entrepreneurs. Because what I've found is that when you bring those three types of groups together, they can do business together. It's difficult if you bring all founders together, because founders are usually in growth mode and trying to, if they're a small business that's just started up, they're trying to build. So it's much more difficult to lend a hand to someone else. They need the help. If you have all senior women together, unfortunately, they've been conditioned to see one another as threats and competition. And so they aren't as likely to reach out. So you have to bring these three groups together and be really intersectional across age and level and industry and motherhood and marital status. You really have to bring that diversity to that room. And we have increased women's wealth by more than $7 million over the course of these 18 dinners, because women are doing that. We are giving each other that access without making someone jump through the hoops, because so often the reason that it's, I say this a lot because I really believe it. When we see the lack of women, and women of color in particular, in positions of power and influence, it has nothing to do with ability, aspiration, or ambition. It has everything to do with access.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's really happening there. These women are not even a part of the consideration set. So often when you have an algorithm or a decision that requires someone meets these certain criteria, and those are criteria that are 10 to 15 times more difficult for women to meet than men, of course, you're going to have a bunch of men then to choose from. So we have to start really inspecting and being more diligent about questioning the systems that we are inside of, that we perpetuate by just continuing to do the thing that's always been done, and start saying what needs to change and what needs to be different. So that's what we're doing with the Fairway. And from it has come a membership and an app. And so women are continuing to build that business together.
I love that. And you made me think of something too, just like changing the systems. And I was just having this conversation with my daughters. I can't remember, just about salary transparency and all of that, how we could immediately just, cut to the shit and cut to the chase really quick by doing things like that. And I think certain states are starting to require that, because I remember I saw somebody actually post on LinkedIn. She's like, I applied for my job with a man's name, and the job offered me like $40,000 or $50,000 more. It's like, what?
It's insane. It happens every day.
It happens all the time, and it makes me crazy.
Yes.
So I'm so glad you're doing that. So let's dig into the HypeWomen movement. And so for all of you who don't know, I'm going to just dial it back for a second. So when it was the Oscars, right? It was the Academy Awards. And so
it actually started with the
Golden Globes.
Golden Globes.
Globes. Okay, maybe it was the Golden Globes. So it was when Everything Everywhere All at Once, such a great movie, was up for all the awards, and Michelle Yeoh was up for Best Actress. And when she won, and then there's this picture, I'm going to get all emotional because it was so great. I love Jamie Lee Curtis. I love her. And she was like screaming, and you could see the joy in her being so happy for another woman. And I love the fact that they are two like fabulous, badass midlife actresses who are just so incredible. And it was Jamie Lee Curtis's face like screaming for Michelle Yeoh. So Erin jumped on and said, this is what it means to be a hype woman. Like, we have got to cheer with everything in our fiber and our being for everybody else's wins. And I know it was like revolutionary, and it totally struck a chord. So tell me what happened when you did that.
Yeah, I think it's something that we don't see enough of. And that's why it was I had such a visceral reaction to that image, because if you didn't have the context of what was happening, you would have thought that Jamie had won an award because of the way that she was reacting. But she actually felt that level of excitement and connection and pride in her friend. So I wrote a LinkedIn post and said, ladies, this is our mantra for 2023, because this was January 10th. I'm like, unabashed hype women. That's what we are going to do. We are going to decondition from what we've been told our entire lives, that especially in corporate America, women are our competition, that they are threats to our success, that one woman's accolade detracts from our ability to create something for ourselves. And so there's such a scarcity mindset that has been built into us, and it's not our fault, but it is our responsibility to make a different choice and to recognize that conditioning and start to take the steps to unlearn. Because of course we think this, there's very little women in very senior roles. So the thought is there's only one spot, and if she got it, then that was mine. And men don't have that. They have an abundance mindset because there is always a place for them. They are everywhere. They are running everything. Therefore, when they tell their friend about something, they don't think to themselves, this might be my opportunity that I'm giving up to him. They think, we're both going to be riding on a yacht together. So we have to start to sort of apply that same idea to the way that we see one another. And I also believe that this was ingrained in us very purposefully by a patriarchal structure that said, if we make women think that their competition is women, they're going to spend all this time infighting and we're just going to sail right past them, continuing to do what we want to do in the world. So if, again, that 51% of the population, half of the labor force actually decided to start supporting each other, we could take over. We could take over everything. And so the other sort of message and the call to action in the post was, when you see another woman do something, celebrate her, post about it, use HypeWomen as a hashtag. You might have that first inkling that says to you like, oh, Jen has a podcast? Well, isn't she so special, right? Like that can be the first thought that you have. And instead say to yourself, of course I think that way. It's what I've been taught to think my whole life. Guess what? That's amazing that she's done that. I'm going to go talk about her and celebrate her and say her name in rooms when she's not there. So that's what we have to start doing. And that post went viral. And then a friend shared it with Jamie Lee Curtis, and she posted it on her, Instagram to her 6 million followers. And then 15 global publications picked up this story. And as a former PR person, knowing what it is to get placement and how much pitching and relationships are required to do so in those, big places like the Today Show and People and HuffPost, none of this was pitched. And that just means that there is something happening in culture. There is a seismic shift in the way that women are viewing one another, and this struck a chord. And so we've continued to sort of follow that. And I've created a media platform essentially around HypeWomen, which has the podcast that we launched on Women's Equality Day, October 26th. And we have our 6th episode coming out this week, and a book in the works, and many other exciting things.
Well, I love it. I feel like we're such kindred spirits because I talk about almost exactly the same thing. And we're going to just kind of have to keep talking about it and keep talking about it. And I tell the women, like my clients, I said, just when you cannot stand the sound of your own voice, still only know that 10% of the people are hearing what you've got to say. And so I will never stop saying this about supporting women, because I go out and I'm actually going to give a keynote in a month about this very same thing of like why we have these thoughts and turning those thoughts around and using your reaction as, information. It's like, well, maybe I want to start a podcast. So instead of like, who the hell is she? Like, let me get off my ass and go do my thing. Like, it's just telling me that I want to go do my podcast. But it's really walking women through that history. It's the advertising, the conditioning, the patriarchy. We had to fight for guys. We had to fight for this. And we've all been told also in the history of time that we're never good enough. We're like, to this, to that. That's how I came up with you're not too fucking old. It's really like, you're not too fucking anything. Young,
That's right.
Old, fat, thin, quiet,
right.
like whatever. It's just, it's all a bunch of bullshit.
It is.
And so we really have to just empty our minds. And I know too that you had mentioned this, and I'm a firm believer that, the way out is for us to collaborate and work together. It's not to be in our silos. We're going to be where we are in 200 years. Like our daughters, like they will not see, the next generation will not see what we want unless we really band together and lock arms.
Absolutely.
And we do it together. So, and it's going to take extra time that we all don't have, but we have to do it. We have to be intentional if we want to make change. So in that vein, what do you think the top 3 to 5 things are right now that women can do to become HypeWomen?
So I think it's going to be like a really sort of simple tactical process. I think that the first and easiest thing is to once a day celebrate another woman. It could be honestly very publicly on a stage or on a social media platform. It could be when you're at pickup and you say to another woman, oh my God, I love your jacket. These are the types of things that just start to create a compounding effect of positive energy and connection. And the collective is the way that we're going to do this. So once a day, just say one kind thing about another woman to her or about her out in the world. The next is when you have that moment where you actually go to that place of jealousy or envy, check yourself. So in order to be a hype woman, you also have to acknowledge that inside of you, you have conditioning that makes you think of other women as competition. There is not a single woman on this planet, if she's being honest with herself, that hasn't had a moment where she has felt that, where you look at another woman and you are comparing yourself to her. You're comparing your body, where you are in your career, you're comparing your home, your car, your spouse, whatever it looks like. And so when you have that moment, just check yourself and say, of course, I'm comparing myself. I have been taught to do that. I am not going to spend any more energy thinking negative thoughts about her. There's this difference between jealousy and envy that my therapist taught me a while ago. And I don't even know if by definition it's true, but I don't care because it's so good. Because jealousy is, I want what you have, right? So that's me going, oh my God, Jen has the cutest background of like for her podcast. This is amazing. Like, I'm so jealous. So I am inspired. I want to do that. I want to create that look. Envy is, I don't want you to have what you have. And so there is something much darker there that has come through with women over the course of time, especially in corporate, especially in senior roles, where women are undercutting each other and they are leaving each other out of opportunities and conversations because they do not want them to have success. Again, scarcity mindset. So we have to, when we have those moments, we have to recognize them and then make a different choice, right? So you once a day start to get in the habit of hyping another woman. Check yourself when you're having those moments where you are comparing. Another thing has nothing to do with other women, it has everything to do with yourself. If you don't love yourself and say kind things to yourself, it is so much more difficult to do it for other people. So there's a lot of internal work that needs to be done for each of us in starting to shift the self-talk. I mean, I am meaner to no other woman than myself when I am thinking about my aspirations, my ambition, and where things have fallen short, or I didn't get what I wanted, or I, haven't hit whatever milestone I'm expecting. So you also have to start to really focus on yourself. How are you going to pour in? How are you going to be kind to yourself again? And then I think you also start to surround yourself with women who have that same energy. I have had some real changes of heart in the past few years on people that I work with, people that I have gotten into business with, people that I spend my time with on a social level, friends. I am really scrutinizing that time and saying, I have to be really conscious about the energy that people put out into the world and how that impacts me. And I will only surround myself with those that are caring and good people and do not represent so much of the narcissistic sort of behavior that I have been drawn to in the past. Narcissists can be really successful people and also very, what's the word I'm looking for?
They're successful, but I think from the narcissist, but you realize there's nothing sort of behind it. It's like a lot of show. It's kind of like it's not authentic. It's not practicing what you preach. It's
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay. I remembered it. So if you want to edit this part out, I can say it again and do a better job. What I have found about narcissists is they can be incredibly successful and they're also very charming. And so figure out like, why am I attracted to this person's energy? And is that because it's familiar and it's something that I've actually done a lot of work to outgrow? Or is it because it's authentic and true and real? And so that has been my journey of undoing those connections that have created less of that hype women energy. And so it's really about thinking about the 360 degrees of like the world that you have created for yourself. Who are you surrounding yourself with? How are you talking to yourself? How are you talking to other women? And how are you deconditioning and unlearning from what you have been told that is false about you and other women?
Oh, I love all those tips. Those are so great. And I think the most important one you said is really, it's the looking at yourself and healing yourself. Because I know we've all been in a place where the shit's been hitting the fan. You're not happy with yourself. I've talked freely about sort of my breakdown and how I was uninvited to a friend's house because I was deep and dark and falling apart and, needing Jesus and a lot of other stuff. So I know it can be hard, but I think the most radical act we can do as women is heal ourselves, because then everything sort of comes from this place of healing and love. And when you, like you said, when you love yourself and you think highly of yourself, you're going to bring that out into the world. But if you're also depressed, and I just had somebody on the podcast talking about, denying your true gifts and your true nature. So when you stuff that down, then you're going to go out and lash at people because you're not living in your true purpose and your true passion. And so there's a lot of unpacking. And I know it's hard of women listening right now that they're kind of in it and they can't step back, but we have to take responsibility for ourselves. And I talk about this a lot. We've got to like show up and we've got to do the work, and we take radical responsibility is what it comes down to. So then when you do and you show up, you are going to automatically shed layers of people. I've done it too the past couple of years. And I know when I'm in a big transitory time of like the kids aren't young anymore, they're older. So you're not around all those parents, and you see the people that fall to the side. And I like to say, it's like, I'm sure you didn't go, we're not going to be friends anymore. You just let people fade away, wish them well, let them go about their business. But it's so important, because when you're around other women like Erin, I'm attracted to you because you're like, so authentic. You practice what you preach. Who you are online is who you are in real life, and you have a point of view, and it's very strong. And I know this is going to lead me into my next question. Women are terrified to show up as their true real selves. And I know why. I've got my definition, but I'd love to hear why you think it's so hard for women to actually show up and take a stand and be who they are, because the world is demanding that we come out there and show ourselves to the world. So why is it so hard for women to do that?
Yeah, I think it's a personal question as well as a collective experience, because I'll speak for myself. The reason I had a hard time coming out to the world as who I was before I turned 40 is because I let other people tell me who I was. So even if I thought I knew something about myself and I was starting to go that direction and share that with the world and be more out about it, I was getting feedback that that wasn't correct. That wasn't acceptable. That wasn't attractive. Asking hard questions wasn't a good thing. Talking about the hard stuff wasn't, it made people see me as a liability versus connected to me because I was being honest. And so I think for me, I let other people tell me who I was for too long, personally and professionally. And when I turned 40, it was just a transformative year for me because it's that milestone birthday. And, I think it was like we were coming out of the pandemic. I had at the time, so it's just last year, my kids were, 5 and 3. And I just sort of said, how much longer, Erin, do you want to let other people tell you what you're capable of? And how much longer are you going to shrink to fit into the box that they have decided is big enough for you and what you hope to achieve? And so when I went out on my own and started my own company, that was the first time that I felt permission to tell the truth, because I answered to no one. No one could call me. I mean, every other time I was just thinking about this morning. It's funny you asked me this question. Every other time in my life that I had sort of said something that might be considered really personal or like disruptive, it was really just about like what happened to me in the world, right? So I was telling the story that took place. I was told by people that I worked for and worked with, you can't do that. You represent us. You're an extension of us. And so we are not okay with you telling the truth about your experience. And that's the position that many women in corporate are in. And so I have deep empathy. I'm not delusional about saying, hey, CMO of Fortune 500 company, go tell the world about your abortion. I'm not sure that you are going to be like surrounded and held when you do that. So everyone has to make their own personal choice. I'm in a place now where I don't have anything I have to hold back. Therefore, I feel deep responsibility to say what I know other women can't say. And so I will show up and talk about the hard stuff and say what I've been through, struggles and successes. And I get blowback all the time, but these are from people that I don't know. And so I just block and delete them. I used to spend a lot of energy trying to decipher whether or not what they said had truth to it. And now I just don't fucking care. Like, I really don't give a shit what your opinion is of what happened to me, because I'm just telling you what happened. And so what your anger that you're projecting onto me has so much more to do with something you need to navigate and deal with and heal around. So I don't have to spend any more energy. So that's the other thing that's changed for me, Jen, is like, I don't waste any more energy trying to fix other people. And I spent a lot of my life doing that and feeling deep responsibility for solving other people's problems. And of course, like, the work that I do is about like the collective experience of women and making sure that it's a more equitable world, but individual issues that people have with me, not on my to-do list.
Yeah. Not your circus, not your monkeys, so to speak.
Nope.
I'm glad you said that, because yes, there are a couple different things. There are the women who are in corporate. So if they're not working for themselves, yes, it is risky, and there are those factors. And we need to understand and appreciate that, and also support and understand that those women, there's a limit. There's an absolute limit. And I'm like you, because I've worked for myself for 20 something years. So I can say what I want. And people are going to run away screaming, and then the other people are going to come towards us. And so I say this all the time. It's like, if you try to be for everyone, you're going to be for no one.
That's right.
And especially if you're in a place of leadership and you've got a voice, I've got, my platforms that we can say different things that somebody else maybe is constrained by sort of a corporate situation. But what I find interesting too, working with so many female entrepreneurs and then they've got their own business and they've got their own platforms, and there's nobody looking over them. There's still so many of them so terrified to show up. And this is just to talk about the fluffy things. This is just to try to show up and promote their business, because they've been so conditioned. We've all been conditioned that. I literally had in this last mastermind these fabulous women. And this one woman was like, but I feel so salesy. I'm like, but you've got to talk about what you offer, and it's so special. And if you don't, no one's going to know. Like, you're absolutely changing people's lives with what you are offering, but it's still so hard. And so I have so much compassion and empathy, because we've all been kind of just told we need to kind of sit in our little spots and be quiet, look cute, don't ruffle feathers. And if you haven't had the opportunity to do the work and kind of dig deep, it's really hard. And so when, life, big things happen, I've been talking to women, they'll DM me like, why aren't women standing up and using their voice? I said, you have to understand, a lot of women don't feel safe for myriad reasons.
Absolutely. And they shouldn't. Most women shouldn't feel safe in the world. It's a really unsafe place for us. And so it's completely understandable. And also, everyone has their own way of processing. So I think we have to spend less time telling other people how they've let us down because they haven't done something we expected of them that was never agreed upon or communicated, and just working on our damn selves, right? I receive DMs all the time when things are happening in the world. There's something horrific happening in the world every single day. And I speak out on so much of it. And I'm not going to get to everything, because some of it is also protecting my own sanity and peace. And so I think, again, it's like, when you have that instinct to attack another person and to give them negative feedback, I would ask yourself first, like, why is this triggering for me? What's happening in this moment that's making me feel this way? Because so often it has absolutely nothing to do with that other person, and it has everything to do with an unhealed wound. And so, I would really sort of encourage people to pause in those moments instead of immediately getting on social media and pushing something out into the world. As far as women having a hard time talking about themselves and promoting themselves, I mean, again, this is conditioning. This is why HypeWomen is so powerful, because the point of it, and my call to women was, say something good about yourself and tag me, and I will repost you, and I will share it, and I will yell it from the rooftops, because you need to hear someone say back to you, that is amazing. Once you start to have that happen over and over again, you realize, like, okay, I've been told self-promotion is gross and self-indulgent and selfish, but actually this is how I build my business. This is just my work. When men do it, we say they're leaders, they're innovators, they're transformative. When women do it, we're like, they're egotistical, they're self-important. So if we look at that, it has nothing to do with reality. It has everything to do with how we've been conditioned to view men and women in the world, and view their success and view their ambition. And so I think it's problematic that there are a lot of organizations out there, specifically women-run, women-filled organizations, who also say to these women, you are not allowed to promote your work or yourself inside of our org. That's not what this is for. This is for connection. Well, how the hell are we supposed to make more money then? Right? Men have never been told, don't talk about your work in any sense of the word and in any space that they've been. And yet we are told every day what we're not allowed to wear, say, do. So you just have to start to like think about the spaces that are telling you to make yourself smaller and to disappear, and decide how much more energy you want to put into those places.
Ooh, I'm so glad you said that. I had joined a couple different networking groups and promptly was like, these are not for me for that same reason. And it's interesting. And again, it's that the people running them, it's like that old school conditioning of like, oh, then why am I here? I'm just going to go get wine with girlfriends. Like this is like networking, and it's not, and then it's also, because I've taught this to women as well, is like, and when you do come in, it's like, not shoving yourself on somebody, but like, what can I do for you? So it's like, but also not being afraid to say, Erin, I feel like you might know somebody at this company, me not being afraid to ask you. And then now, Erin, is there something I can do for you? Like, do you need a connection? Do you have something happening? Can I pimp something out for you?
Yes.
So we get used to this exchange, because the dudes, like you said, they've been doing it forever. It's like, come on, come into this investment deal and yada, yada, yada. I mean, that's a whole other conversation about all that.
That's right.
But yeah, so when you come in with that mindset, and I'm in a beautiful leadership group that it's very much encouraging, like, what do you need help with right now?
Amazing.
What do you need amplified?
That's exactly right.
And then conversely, the old, don't come at your friends to pick their brain. Nothing drives me crazier, because again, it's this, and I just did this with a friend. I said, you can't take me out for a glass of wine for an hour consultation. This is how I make my living.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely.
And I would never want you to do it either.
I would never want you to do it either. And now when we actually have said it, I think you do want to invest in my social and human capital that I'm going to share with you. Right. And so I think we're also told don't do business with friends, because like, look, then Jen, it's going to fuck it up. She just wants to have a glass of wine with you. And now you've been so withholding that you don't want to talk about business. And you say, here's the deal, girl. We are friends and we have the potential to do business together. Both can exist. And when we get to that place where I am starting to share my human capital with you that is going to turn into financial capital, then we are in a place where we have to do an exchange that's monetary or exchange of services or whatever. But it's not free, right? And so women have to stop doing free work. We have to stop speaking for free. We have to stop letting people pick our brains. We have to stop doing unpaid labor on boards and other places where we know this $10.9 trillion in unpaid labor every year is what women do. That is an entire global economy. What if we were paid that? I think we would run everything, right? And so like, this is the issue. These small choices and these moments matter because they add up to the course of your week and month and year. And we do have to be in spaces that encourage us to ask for what we need and to offer what we can give. And that's exactly what we do at these dinners. It is part of the exercise in the room is tell us what you're doing and tell us what you need in order to move your career forward. And immediately in that space, what ends up happening is a woman across the table says, I can help you with that. I can make a connection for you. I know the person that is in charge of that. And so you start to make those connections and all of a sudden we're all doing work together and everyone is making money. And so like making money is not a dirty thing. And women are told so often, like, if you're doing mission-driven work, then you should be doing it because you care about it. And being paid
work for free.
Right. Because being paid, I mean, this is the conversation that I had with Shannon Watts, the founder of Moms Demand Action. She was the executive director for 10 years and she did so unpaid. And it is completely insane to me because no man would do that shit for free. Like it wouldn't happen. And so we have to stop creating organizations and signing up for work that is not valuing our time in the way that men's time is valued. And this is an Eve Rodsky quote and philosophy in her book, Fair Play, where it's like men's ideas and men's time is viewed as diamonds. So it's finite and precious, and women's time is viewed as sand. It's infinite and like worthless. And we have to make that shift. And it starts in the home, but it continues in the way that we engage with our community and the way we create and build our careers. So don't do anything for free anymore. Like, stop.
Gosh, I love Eve Rodsky. You just made me think of this survey or something that came out. They said survey says that women like in middle age or later in life are insecure about more insecure about their finances than men. And all the comments were like, well, first of all, you can start paying us the same.
I mean, are we that surprised?
The unpaid labor, all the secondary job, like you said, like everything has been built on the backs of women.
Yeah.
That's like another conversation. It just makes me crazy.
Right. But it's like, enough with the fucking surveys. What are you going to do about it? Right.
Like, let's change the broken systems, for God's sakes.
Correct. That's exactly right.
My God. All right. So let's take, deep breaths. We've got our work to do. Well, we've all collectively got our work to do.
Yes.
Oh my God. I could talk to you forever. I have 2 final questions for you. Well, one's a statement and one's a final question.
Okay.
Because I know you've entered into sort of the middle life phase. And it's sad to think that we are actually, put out to pasture after the age of 40, but that's what we're doing, this important work. And how I'm like, I was joking, everybody, when I invited Erin to be on the podcast. It's the hashtag HypeWomen meets the hashtag YNTFOs. It's like, HypeWomen means you're not too fucking old.
That's
and
right.
Boom, let's throw off some fireworks.
That's right.
So what do you think the best thing is about being in midlife?
Like my very quick first answer that comes to my mind is not fucking caring what people think anymore. That's the first thing that comes to my mind, because it really is a shift in mentality of, that's why I can say what I say. It's why I can be more out there. It's why I'm willing to take risk. It's because I believe it's the right thing. And I think that I have value and worth that I'm bringing, and I can have impact. Therefore, people's reaction to that, I recognize, has so much more to do with them than it does with me. That took me a long time to get to, but I think that I have enough years under my belt, personally and professionally, to see how this plays out. And that's really the place that I'm at now, is like, listen, I am not here to be likable. Likability is a trap meant to keep women silent, right? Because if you want to be likable by everyone, do and say nothing. Then no one can react to you, right? So like, every time I put something out into the world, I am opening myself up vulnerably to people's feedback and reaction. More often than not, it's positive and it's supportive and it builds more relationships. But you absolutely have the people that are there to be trolls and to yell from the gallery while people are actually down, in the realm doing the work, whatever that place is.
In the ring.
Thank you. I was like, it's another R word, but my anti-fog perimenopausal medication hasn't kicked in yet, so I couldn't remember the word. So thank you so much, girl.
I got you. I know what you're trying to say.
Yes.
It's like we're in there fighting it out. Yeah. And I've had people come at me with like, well, you are old. I was like, oh, wow, that's okay. Great. I'm just going to cry into my pillow tonight and not get up tomorrow morning.
Also, I think it's incredible that like, that is supposed to be a negative comment, or that's supposed to be a diss. People can't help when they're born. And so I've experienced absolutely in my corporate career, the opposite end of ageism, of being told I'm not ready, I'm too young, I don't have enough experience. So we've got to stop carrying like decades old archaic ways of thinking into our new world and our workforce. And because the world is completely different than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. So that excuse doesn't work anymore. And I think it's again about, how do you decide where you're going to spend your time and energy, who you're going to work with and for? Are they people that are carrying old ways forward that no longer work? Or are they those that are willing to disrupt and to innovate and to try something new, even if they're not sure how it's going to work out, because it could be the thing that turns this all around?
Oh my God. We could literally talk for 2 hours, Erin.
I know, girl. I mean, we will only do it this much time for the podcast, but
we'll save everybody, but we're going to definitely be talking more. So everyone finishes this statement. I'm not too fucking old to
change. Yeah.
Boom.
I'm not too fucking old to change. And honestly, I think about that every week. Like something that worked for me last week may not work anymore. And sometimes we feel that when we change, we are admitting that we were wrong or that we aren't good enough, when in reality, if we're not always constantly growing, what is the point? And so I would hope that I would continue for the rest of my life to be open to changing all the way to the end, because it means that I'm paying attention and I'm willing to heal and grow.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. We get to change every day if we want. Every day. I mean, that's the beauty, I think, about being in midlife too. It's just, there's no beginning, there's no end. It's just day to day. It's just day to day. I want to do this today. Tomorrow I want to do this, and it's okay.
That's exactly right.
Oh, again, I could talk to you forever, but we have to wrap it up. So where can we find you, stalk you, support you, and get more of you?
I think that the place I spend the most time online is absolutely on LinkedIn. So come connect with me there, send me a message, and follow the content that I'm putting out into the world. You can also find me on my website, ellaforall.com, and connect with me there and on Instagram. But LinkedIn's probably the best place to have a two-way conversation.
I love it. And we'll link all that in the show notes. Well, Erin, it has been such a joy having you here. So I'm your hype woman.
Jen, I'm your hype woman. We're not too fucking old to hype each other.
No, ma'am.
Oh man, that would have been a better way to answer your question. Shit. I should have said, I'm not too fucking old to hype women. Well, I left my branding and marketing hat like with my, I guess, like rest of my brain today, but
guess what? We get to change it. So then we can just change it to that one.
We could, right? Both are good, but yes, all of the things. Thank you for creating this space for us to have this conversation, for making this conversation possible for so many women, and pushing the boundaries and the limits of what we've been told we can be. You're doing amazing work.
Thanks, Erin. I adore you. Hype women forever.
Whoop, whoop.